you gonna do?
Why, hello. Welcome back for another week. Now, I have a serious question for you. Do you, as a business owner, set business goals every year? Now, they say that businesses that set goals and write them down are more likely to achieve them. Now, before we get into today's topic, I just want to remind you, if you do like what we do, please like, share, tag, and remember, if you want to receive our monthly newsletter, we'll drop the link below so that you can subscribe to the newsletter. Now, today's guest is someone that is a business owner himself, and he regularly sets business goals. I would love to introduce you to Simon from Cranky Goat. Now, Simon, welcome. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, I am a big lover of your cheeses, and I feel that, as Valentine's Day is coming up, a little gift basket would be appreciated. I'm joking.
I'm told that quite often by a number of people.
Yeah.
I love the words of Hannah.
Yeah. Now, Simon, tell us a little bit about Cranky Goat, because, the names are a little bit, Cranky Goat, but, you're doing really well in the market of food production, and I'd love to hear, and I'd love you to share with people watching, what is Cranky Goat?
Well, we're Cranky Goat is a family business, and we started out 9 years ago. We were making 180 kilos of cheese a month, and a plan was to remain at the sort of that size. We're now doing between 1.4 and 1.6 tons of cheese a month. Still in the same building, still a family business based out in the Marlborough Sounds. We run two brands. We have Cranky Goat and we have Moody Cow. And by those names, you could probably appreciate that we don't take ourselves too seriously when it comes to what we're doing. We look at producing high quality handmade cheeses, very much orientating towards the French style.
Yep.
But it's also for us, it's been about innovation and growing a business. And certainly the dairy industry, food production side, it is a tough business and margins are really tight.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. And I think, as a business owner, there's lots of challenges that we're facing at the moment, especially due to the pandemic.
Yeah, and I think, the topic we're going to talk about, I think this is probably really a great time to talk about it, because the great thing with goal setting as a business, if you're doing it as a business regularly and keep visiting them and making them not just something you have in your folder because someone told you to do it, but have it as something that you use on a weekly, monthly basis to help give you direction. We certainly have found when the pressure really comes on and you're sort of a little bit unsure what you need to do, go back to your goals, and all of a sudden there's greater clarity in actually this is what we're here to achieve.
I love that. So let's get started. So, we've picked a couple of points here that we're going to cover today. And the first one is, how do the goals fit into your vision? So, share with us your thoughts on this.
But one of the things I've taught leadership probably for the last 20 years before I got into cheese making, and everybody talked about goal setting. And I was working with my apprentice cheesemaker about 18 months ago, and it suddenly dawned on me the relationship between your vision as a business, your goals, and then your plans. So your vision is really a conceptual thing. That bigger picture in 15, 20 years, this is where we want to be. It's sort of that bit of blue sky dreaming of where you want it to be. And really that should remain reasonably fixed, because that's around developing, around that should reflect who you are as a business. What are your core values? What's your ethos? And where is it that you really want to go as a business in longer term? But that should remain reasonably fixed, because unless you change what your core business is, your vision should remain reasonably fixed. Otherwise, you can end up chasing your tail, running from one side of the ship to the other.
Yeah.
And in business, that is very easy to do that, and you can lose a lot of money very quickly rebranding, changing your focus, changing your products, and actually it's moved away from what your core business is. And then so the goal, how goals link into that vision is when you're goal setting, you should have your vision there and you're setting these goals. You should be looking at your vision going, well, actually, does it fit into where we want that to go, the direction? And if it doesn't, you may want to go and look at that goal again and redraft it, reword it, because if it doesn't fit in with what your vision is, you could end up wasting time and energy moving away from what your core business is.
Yeah. Now I've got a question for you. So COVID has impacted a lot of businesses, and you know, we heard the word used, pivot, a lot. So there were businesses out there really having to transition where they went, and that in a sense kind of meant that their vision in some cases had to change as well.
If your vision is written conceptually enough, it shouldn't need to change. What has to pivot is usually your plans that support your goals, or your goals have to pivot. So as the situation changes, there's a great term that we use quite a lot. Okay, the situation's changed, so what? What is the impact of that? And you will list up what the impact is. And from that, you then re-look at it and say, well, okay, what if I did this? And then you ask the so what question again to see whether it answers that change. And I think that's where we need to start. You look at your goals. Okay, is that still relevant? Yes. Okay, come back to the plan for us to achieve that goal. How do we adjust it to the change in the situation? You change the situation and then you move forward. You change the plan, so you're still maintaining the integrity of your direction.
Yep. And I guess oh, sorry, go.
Good. I think we saw, like, for instance, textile manufacturers suddenly starting to make face masks.
Yep.
Had they changed their core business, which was to manufacture textiles? No. They'd probably moved from making maybe a T-shirt or a shirt to making face masks. So yes, their plan had changed, but they were still making a textile.
Yeah. I think this is a good segue into your second point, where it's how do your plans support your goals? And you kind of just touched on that a little bit.
I think the key with the plans is you've got to remember a plan really only lasts. There's a great saying they talk about in the military. The plan will only last until you come in contact with the enemy. Well, the enemy for us as businesses is COVID.
Yeah.
So as soon as COVID pops up, we had plans there. We had a framework. We'd gone through the thought process. So we didn't need to change it completely. But when you're developing plans, we should constantly be looking at developing 3 courses of action for that plan, and looking not just at what pops into our head, not just what pops into your head. Oh yeah, that looks about right. What's the left? What's the right? What's the center? And then look at the pros and cons of each of those, and then pick what's best for you to achieve that goal. The great thing, if you do that and bother to come up with those 3 courses of action, it means when something like COVID happens, you've already gone through a big chunk of the thought process.
Yeah.
And you just need to work through that again, just refresh, and then you can go through.
Yeah. So do you mind sharing us a little bit about the process that you went through at Cranky Goat, dealing with COVID? Yeah.
So it was really, we were selling. So a little bit about cheese making. When you're cheese making, we're often working 3 to 4 weeks ahead. So we have stock that's ready. I'm always looking as a cheesemaker 3 to 4 weeks ahead. So when COVID suddenly, we got told on the Monday we're going into lockdown, and on the Wednesday we went into lockdown, I had in my maturing room 3 or 4 weeks worth of stock at the level we were working at that time. So we lost 95% of our business literally at that lockdown. And we'd already paid, we would have paid for all of that stock sat in the maturing room. So it was an interesting, it was certainly an interesting day. We sat down, I sat down, and my wife was getting quite worried. So the first thing that I did was tell her to go out for a walk, to go and have a sit on the beach and chill for a half an hour and come back. And then really it was a matter of, okay, what do I see in front of me? What are the facts? What are the known facts? And then sort of developed 3 courses of action. And I think probably the most important thing that we did was also explore the trigger points to move from. So for instance, on the right hand side was do nothing, and I wrote all the pros and cons of doing nothing, just maintain the same level of production. What would be the trigger point? We run out of trays in the chiller because they're all full of product. And then you sort of, what was the middle? Okay, reduce production. And then on the left hand side was stop production. And we looked at all those pros and cons. We really identified the trigger points. And then I went back and had a look at our vision and actually said, okay, is this still within core business? Yeah, we were still doing our core business of making and selling cheese. Were we still trying to achieve some of the peripheral stuff, that being sustainable, being profitable? Yeah, that helped me understand what I needed to do back when I was under pressure. That helped me, give me greater clarity. So remaining on that right-hand side of doing nothing, I wasn't going to be able to achieve my vision of being sustainable and profitable. If I shut down, I wasn't going to be sustainable or profitable. So it really helped me, guide me to where our middle ground was and what we needed to do. Yeah.
And look, in your time, you would have no doubt had conversations with other businesses. And where do you feel when, you know, people are looking at vision and just supporting those goals, where do you feel that people have unraveled?
I think, first of all, they have I see it in a couple of things. People, I saw when we went into that first lockdown, a number of businesses just buried their head in the sand, and it will go away. We'll go back to normal. We'll do nothing. Well, that obviously didn't work. I think the other one was people became panicked a little bit and lost clarity of where they were going. And I think a lot of that was they'd not bothered to sit down as a business and to really think about who they were, what they were about, what was important to them, what were they willing to give to make that business successful. And we've always, and some of it goes back, well, that's what we've always done. Well, they'd lost their flexibility. They'd become very inflexible. And I think that's the virtue of taking time out. We do it every year. We take time out usually in the end of May, and we will sit down for 3 or 4 days and look at what's gone well in the previous season, what have been issues, what do we need to worry about, and then we spend a couple of days going, right, what do we need to do for the next season coming, taking those points that we identified from the previous year.
And I think that's a really good practice. We do the same. So every year we sit down, we review our year that was, and we review our goals. Did we achieve them? Is it still where we want to be heading? Do we want to modify it? And we set new goals every year. And then we actually have, because we're a very small team here, we have someone that keeps us accountable to our goals. And that's where sometimes goals can get lost, isn't it? That accountability piece.
There's a term I use, who's going to keep you honest?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, who is it? And that sounds a bit impersonal, a bit confronting, but you need that person who's going to come and go, tap you on the shoulder. You said you were going to do that. Why haven't you done it? And the other thing I think which often gets overlooked and is really important, if you don't achieve a goal, why didn't you achieve it? What were the barriers that what were the barriers or what were the circumstances that meant you didn't achieve that goal. And I would suspect, and we've found that, so one of the areas we look at every year is around our work-life balance as business owners, and we have failed terribly at that for the last 8 years. So why is it? And it's invariably the same thing. And when you don't achieve other goals, it's those same underlying reasons will be there. And I think if you can identify them, that helps you be more proactive, or certainly identify when you're getting into an area that you're vulnerable as a business. With those traits are starting to come up. Okay, what do we need to do to get out of this area of vulnerability?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting when it comes to goal setting, and we set goals in our personal life, or we set ambitions in our personal life, and sometimes it gets a little bit lost when it comes to being transferred into a business scenario. People get overwhelmed, or they don't feel it's possible, or they set their goals way too big for them to actually achieve. And I think you made a really good point there about saying, well, why is it that we're not actually achieving these goals? Was it not the right goal? Was it too big for you to achieve, or it was never achievable in the first place of setting it?
I think it doesn't really matter what format you use. You have smart, smarter, there's numerous formats. I think it's whatever you pick, whatever's comfortable. And I think also it comes back to, you actually make it something that's living, and you can use it. That's the other thing, is when you're being proactive, using them proactively, you can use it as a measure to see how successfully you're doing. Rather than just looking, how do we measure success in a business? Do you just look at the bank balance, or do you turn around and say, well, okay, as a part of our goals, when we're talking about measurable, could you put something in that gives you a check that once a month or once every couple of weeks or whatever it is, you can go and do that check to give you an understanding of where you are, to stop things from gently creeping to areas outside of your control.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point to bring up, is, KPIs within a business is really important, and they should always align with your goals. They should be the stepping stones to help you achieve those business goals. And measurement is subjective to the person that's setting those goals. You will have your own, at Cranky Goat, your own way of measuring. And obviously the bank balance is great. We all love to have money in the bank, but we don't always know. Sometimes it's a bit superficial, and especially where I've spent a lot of my time in the tourism and travel industry, you may have a lot of money in your bank, but you also have a lot of outgoings that have to pay to cover, and there's a reason why you've got an influx in funds. And sometimes people get a little bit lost in watching the bank balance versus watching other measurable attributes of their business instead.
And I think that's, I've seen a number of businesses who thought they were doing really well, and then all of a sudden this has sort of crept up on them, and it smacked them in the face a little bit, in that, oh, wait a minute, we're not doing as well as we thought we were. And they could have made that adjustment by just spending that little bit of time coming up with those measurements, linking them to their goals. And I think one of the goals that, as business people, we often forget and we don't write down, is our business. One of the primary goals has to be to make money. Because if we're not making money, what's the point of doing the business?
Correct. Yeah.
And you get frustrated. It's that coming back to that, actually sitting down and thinking about, again, it links back to your vision. What is it that we really are trying to achieve here long term?
Yep.
And also, I think the other thing is, you identify the other great thing with goals, especially in small businesses, you can be very isolated. Yes, you may be surrounded by people, you may be in a town, but as a business owner, you can become very isolated in that the weight of the world sits on your shoulders. And who do you go and have a conversation with? Who can you go and talk about your problems and your troubles? Often they feel very personal. We're not doing that well. But actually, when you sit down and look at your goals and you sit down and look at your measurements, suddenly you realize, actually, we're doing okay. I don't need to beat myself up about this area because overall, we're doing all right.
Yep. No, that's very true. Now, let's move on to the third point. So our third point you've got here is, how you adjust when the situation changes. And we've already touched on this a little bit, but this is a good one because we are finding that our environment is changing, or it could be a case of, we know that we're in level red and there's a real risk for producers like yourself and businesses where if someone happened to test positive, what does it do to your team? Does it disrupt this disruption? But, just the situation changing with your goals.
Look, this again comes, if you're getting into the habit of using goals and planning, get into the habit also of, we know we were going to the traffic light system. Okay, what does that look like? And I'll give MIMBY their due. They were pushing that out there and saying, plan as a business, do a risk assessment of where you are. And again, spend a little bit of time beforehand going through and working out what is the risk, what's the impact, what's the likelihood, and then also having that conversation with your workers about what it looks for them, because you can come up with the best plan in the world and you go to them and go, right, this is what we're going to do, and they all sort of this big intake of breath and go, oh, we're not happy about that. So you need their buy-in, certainly in this type of environment. So I think certainly that little bit of time spent planning is never wasted. And certainly when we're put into that pressure situation, it helps us to make informed decisions. There's a great quote that I use a lot, and it's by a guy called Stephen Covey, who wrote a brilliant book called 7 Effective Habits for Highly Effective People. And he said, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Now, the situation for us is things are changing, so we can't always do what we've always done because we're not going to get it. We're not going to get what we've always got. So we need to change what we're doing. And as a business, is that probably one of our most, as business owners or leaders within a business, it's probably one of the most important skills that you have is to identify the need to change before it's upon you. So you're actually ahead of the curve. You're looking at, okay, life is about change. Life is constantly changing. So it's about identifying there is going to be a change, whether I like it or not. How do I be proactive about this and get ahead of the curve? And the other thing as well is, what do I need to know to make a really good informed decision?
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point here is getting ahead of the curve, because in one case with what has been happening, we've been fortunate enough to have enough warning to be able to make some informed decisions and make changes. And we have seen, and as you indicated earlier, and I have with the work that I've done with other businesses, we have seen people just put their head in the sand. They've just stopped because they just didn't know how to, let's say, they didn't know how to cope or handle it. But really taking that time early rather than later. And in the same conversation started when lockdown happened in 2020, when we first when we knew COVID was coming and we were about to go into lockdown. The conversation of have a discussion with your accountant, have a discussion with your team, have a discussion with your business mentor if you've got one, to try and help you plan. Because Simon, you seem very level-headed, and you've been setting goals for many, many years, and the success of Cranky Goat. But there's a lot of people out there that don't have that confidence in goal setting, and just having that plan in place for that disruption and having a place to start is really important.
I also think there's that great quote, the Nike quote, "Just do it." And I think more you practice it, because your best planning and your best goal setting is done when you're not under pressure. So more you do it then, when you really need it under pressure, it becomes quite easy. And there's now, this is going to sound slightly left field or slightly out there. The other person I would be talking to is your competitors.
Okay. Yeah.
In that they're going to be going through exactly the same as you. And this is something that I've discovered within this industry. In the top of the South Island, the cheese companies are not in competition with each other. We work together because if we made a cheese that everybody else was making, there wouldn't be space in the marketplace. So by having those networks with your competitors and having those communication lines with your competitors, when we have situations like this, it becomes a lot easier. You can have that conversation. If you suddenly get closed down because of COVID, could a competitor help you out? If you haven't with this logistical issues we're having at the moment, have they got spare, for instance, salt that I desperately need? I know someone in Nelson has got some salt. Can we do that exchange? So I think it's slightly out there, but having that conversation sometimes with your competitors is a really good thing and will help you get through these difficult times. And also just talking what you're going through.
Yeah, because they're going to understand more than anyone else what you're going through, aren't they?
I think but that has to be done. There has to be a caveat with that. You must trust and respect that conversation.
Yes, because there's probably people watching this now going, "Oh, I don't know if I could do that. I don't think I could talk to my competitor." Because the last time I saw them, I turned my back on them. No, I mean, I didn't do that, actually.
But there also ask yourself that question, and it's who's going to keep you honest. Ask yourself that question: are they really your competitor, or is that what the system or the world wants you to believe?
Yeah, true. Now, Simon, we're almost at the end of our time, and this has been really valuable. And I've picked up a few little gold nuggets here. But I just want to ask you, if anyone's struggling to actually set some goals, what would be some quick tips that you would give them to just kind of get started in goal setting?
I think the first of all is there's a great mnemonic called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Go and find something that go and find a structure for your goals that is really simple. And don't be a slave. If you can't fill the realistic bit, don't worry about it. But at least just have a go. Just go and have a go at writing a goal, and then share that with someone and get someone to peer review it. And I think once you start it and make a habit of it, it becomes a lot easier. Go and find a business mentor and go and ask, take a question to your business mentor around your goals. And that's the easiest way. Share with other people, and it will start to come. More you do it, more easier it becomes.
Yep. Now, I hear that you are a madman when it comes to goals within your own business. Is that right? You are in charge.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Whether the rest of the rest of the families buy into those goals, sometimes they're questionable.
You're the passionate one. You're the passionate one about the goal setting. And I think it's great because goals are so important. I mean, we have them in our business life. As a young kid, I played a lot of sport. We had a lot of sport goals. Goals have been very instrumental in my personal and, business life. But I feel like, your version of goal setting is playing Monopoly with the family. It could go amazingly well, or it could go terrible.
I think the other thing here is as well. Go and have a look at the likes of the All Blacks.
Yep.
That's what's made them so successful. Their goal setting, their clarity of what they're trying to achieve as a team. They're no different to any other business. You can take all those lessons that they're applying and apply that in business. And if you want a really good example, go and have a look at. There's enough stuff out there about their goal setting and both personal and team goals, and you can take a lot of them and apply them in a business sense.
Yep. It's true, and we've seen some actually sports teams over time go through some massive transformations just because of the mindset and the goal setting that they've put in place.
huge, and you've seen that. I was very lucky. I was involved in professional rugby for a while in the UK, and I was very lucky to work alongside, work under Wayne Smith, and he is an absolute genius at all of that whole transformational leadership, goal setting, getting teams working at that optimum performance.
Yeah, and it is just so critical. But Simon, thank you so much for sharing your time today. I really, really appreciate it, and no doubt we will probably tap you on the shoulder to share some more of your wisdom in the future. So I really appreciate for you taking the time to join us today. I know that you'll probably go straight back to making cheese straight after this.
Back to cleaning, actually.
Yeah, cleaning. Someone's got to do it, don't they? Someone has to do it. But look, if anyone does have anything that they would like to ask Simon, please drop a comment and we'll get in touch with Simon and get a response from him. Please go check out Cranky Goat. And definitely, if you haven't tried their cheeses, please, I'm a massive fan of their goat's cheese. Never thought I'd like goat's cheese until I tried, Cranky Goat. And, they're a great family-owned business. Now, Simon, thank you so much for today, and I really appreciate your gold nuggets and words of wisdom around goal setting. And we'll probably have to ask you back because I've got a few little topics now brewing in my head, and I think you are the man to talk to us about it. So you have a great day, and for everyone that's watching, please like, share, stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Okay, everyone. See you later. Thanks, Simon.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.